I knew the HOA meeting was going to be a disaster the moment. Keran marched in wearing her rules are rules t-shirt like she was the sheriff of the cul-de-sac, but I did not expect her to slam a manila folder onto the table and announce, loud enough to rattle the fluorescent lights, that she was issuing me an official fine for livestock disruption, and I especially didn't expect it to trace back to a completely ridiculous misunderstanding involving her daughter, a cow pasture, and one very enthusiastic manure loader. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The meeting began with the usual tight-lipped tension that only an HOA can produce. I sat quietly in my metal folding chair, sipping weak lemonade, pretending to be interested in the crooked banner that read, "Community comes first." Meanwhile, the recording app on my phone, tucked, face down on the table, was already rolling. Not because I planned to expose anyone, but because the last 3 meetings had devolved into arguments about lawn heights and mailbox paint shades. At this point, recording was practically self-defense. Keran took her spot at the front, lifted her chin and said, "Before today's agenda, we need to address a serious violation committed by him." She pointed at me like I was a suspect in a crime documentary. I blinked. "Me?" Her lips tightened. "Yes. You disrupted community peace with your animals." She flipped open the folder. "And we have photographic evidence." Photographic evidence? I didn't let my surprise show, but inside all the puzzle pieces snapped together. Days earlier, Keran's teenage daughter had wandered onto my property to take aesthetic ranch selfies with my cows. I didn't mind my herd love's attention, but the girl had climbed the fence despite the no trespassing sign big enough to be seen from orbit. So as a joke, I'd driven my manure loader into the background of her photos and grinned. Big, toothily. Tractor, idling behind me like a punchline. Apparently those pictures made it back home. Keran pulled a glossy printout from her folder and slapped it onto the table. There I was, sun hat, loader bucket raised, photobombing her daughter like a chaotic farm guardian angel. "This," she hissed, "is intimidation." I raised my hand. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that photo was taken on my land." "That is not the point," she snapped. "Your property is adjacent to our community. That makes your behavior relevant to our standards." There was a murmur in the room. A few neighbors exchanged looks. One man quietly whispered, "Is that a cow smiling?" I kept calm. "So, you're fining me because your daughter trespassed and took selfies with my livestock?" Keran's nostrils flared. She was expressing her creativity, and that's when I smiled. Because the recording was catching every glorious word. The room went still after Keran's declaration, as if everyone collectively stopped breathing to avoid becoming part of the fallout. I leaned back in my chair, gave her my calmest smile, and folded my hands like someone settling in for a very entertaining movie. She had no clue I'd been recording from the moment she walked in, and now she was doubling down like she had a royal flush instead of a handful of napkins. The HOA president, Mr. Daniels, cleared his throat. "Keran, to be clear, your daughter was on his property?" His tone suggested he was trying very hard to keep things neutral, though his eyebrows were already halfway up his forehead. "She was near his fence," Keran said quickly, waving her hand like swatting a fly. "Close enough counts, and his cows were practically posing, clearly trained." "My cows, bless their souls, are many things, but trained models they are not. They mostly just chew grass and look confused by the concept of Mondays." I nodded politely. "She climbed the fence. I saw her from the barn. She didn't seem scared or threatened. In fact, she took about 20 pictures before she noticed me." Keran snatched another printout. "And look at this! You intentionally inserted heavy machinery into her photographs!" A neighbor coughed to hide a laugh. I kept my voice even. "Keran, it's a manure loader. I use it every morning. I just happened to drive by." That part was mostly true. Before she could retort, Mr. Daniels raised a hand. "Regardless of tractor positioning, the key issue is the trespassing." He looked at me. "Did you confront her aggressively?" "No," I said. "I didn't even speak to her until she got startled and fell off the fence." A collective gasp echoed. Keran jerked toward me. "You pushed her?" "No," I said firmly. She lost balance because she panicked. Then she apologized. I helped her up, made sure she was okay, and she left. End of story. Keran sputtered. She told me you glared at her. I was squinting against the sun. This time, several people laughed outright. Mr. Daniels rubbed his temples. Keran, I'm not seeing grounds for a fine. Her face turned an impressive shade of tomato. But he made her uncomfortable. I finally leaned in. So you want to penalize me because she trespassed, lied about details, and took unauthorized photos of my livestock? A beat of silence stretched, and I had no intention of stopping the recording as the tension built around the table that day. Keran opened her mouth, but before she could fabricate another accusation, Mr. Daniels said, I think we need to review this more carefully. Perfect, because the recording caught everything. I could tell the mood in the HOA room was shifting, and for once, it wasn't shifting in Keran's favor. She stood stiff as a fence post, clutching her folder like it contained state secrets instead of badly printed photos. I decided it was time to share a little information of my own, not to humiliate her, but to help everyone understand what really happened. Mr. Daniels, I said calmly, before we go any further, I think it might help if the group hears something. I tapped my phone, still recording, but now face up. I've been keeping track of these meetings after some previous concerns. Everything said today is on audio. Keran's eyes widened. You can't record me without permission. Mr. Daniels sighed. Keran, this is a public meeting. It's allowed. She opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly realizing she had just stepped into a fresh pile of trouble. Meanwhile, the neighbors leaned in with the collective enthusiasm of people who were unexpectedly getting dinner theater with their mandatory community meeting. I continued. Since we're discussing threats, discomfort, and intimidation, I'd like to point out that your daughter and I had a perfectly normal conversation that day. She even laughed about falling, and she said she loved the cows. I paused before adding, she also said she climbed the fence because she thought the sky would look cooler from inside the pasture. A few neighbors chuckled. One muttered, teenagers. Keran shook her head. No, she told me you glared and revved your machinery at her. I looked at her sympathetically. Ma'am, you can ask her. Or better yet, you can check the time-stamped security camera on my barn. It caught the whole thing. There was no confrontation. I waved. She waved. Then she slipped. Mr. Daniels raised his eyebrows. You have footage? Yes, I said, and I'm willing to show it to anyone who needs clarification. Keran blanched. I could practically see the gears in her mind grinding as she tried to figure out how to pivot. She stammered, Well, maybe she misremembered. Or, I said gently, maybe she didn't want you to know she trespassed. Silence spread across the room like spilled paint. A few people looked down at their papers, suddenly very interested in the edges of their agendas. Mr. Daniels finally spoke. Keran, I believe we need to drop the fine and reconsider the matter entirely. Keran's shoulders slumped, her confidence deflated like a tire hitting a nail. And for the first time all evening, she had nothing to say. But something told me the situation wasn't over yet. The way she narrowed her eyes as the meeting ended made it clear she was planning something, and I suspected the next move would be messy. I hoped the end of the meeting would cool things off, but Keran stormed out of the room like a cartoon villain who'd sworn revenge during the commercial break. I figured she'd rant online, maybe send a passive-aggressive email, maybe even drop another complaint in my mailbox. What I did not expect was what happened the following afternoon. I was in the barn repairing a gate hinge when I heard giggling. Multiple giggles, the kind that only teenagers on a mission can produce. I peeked out and spotted Keran's daughter and two of her friends huddled near the fence, phones out, practicing poses like they were preparing for a magazine cover shoot. I sighed. I didn't mind them being near the cows. Honestly, the herd enjoyed the attention. But the fence? The fence was the line, and based on the way they were eyeing it, they were absolutely planning to cross it again. Before I could go talk to them, one girl spotted me. Oh my gosh, she whispered loudly. There he is, the tractor photobomb guy. I felt my dignity slip a few notches. But then I realized something. They weren't afraid. They thought it was hilarious. Keran's daughter waved at me. Can we get more pics with the cows? She called out, sounding genuinely cheerful. I shook my head, amused despite myself. Stay on that side of the fence, I said, and you're welcome to take as many pictures as you like. They agreed instantly, crisis averted, or so I thought. Just as they started posing, Keran came marching down the sidewalk, expression locked in that trademark storm cloud scowl. She stopped short when she saw the girls taking pictures, and then she saw me. "What are you doing near my daughter again?" she barked. I held up both hands. She asked to take photos. I said it was fine as long as she didn't trespass. But Keran wasn't listening. She threw her hands up dramatically. "You are trying to embarrass us! This is harassment!" Her daughter groaned. "Mom, stop, please!" Keran kept yelling. And that's when I made a decision. Not a mean one, not a spiteful one, a comical one. I climbed into my manure loader, started it up, and parked it directly behind the girls, just far enough, just goofy enough, to land squarely in every picture they took. The girls burst into laughter. Keran sputtered like a lawnmower with a pebble stuck in the blade. One friend snapped a photo and said, "This is legendary!" Keran stared at me speechless before storming away in utter defeat. Her daughter, still laughing, called out, "Thanks for the cameo!" And just like that, the feud ended. Not with a fine, but with a perfectly timed photobomb. Enjoying this wild HOA saga? Tap subscribe so you don't miss the next story from the farm side of chaos. If this photobomb showdown made you laugh, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what you would have done if Keran came after your cows.